It's The Session. I'm your host, Michelle Nicole Charles, and today we have two lovely special guests in the building. We have Shawn Finnie, who is in the entertainment industry. You've seen him on E! And a whole bunch of other shows hosting. Shawn, say what up.
What's up?
This is a big deal. This is the first time that we ever had a male on the show. And the reason why I picked Shawn is because he has all the insights to the insides of the insides of the whole nine of what's going on of our special guest today. So that leads me to our special guest of the day is April Rain. She is the Senior Director of Marketing for Fractured Atlas, and she's also the creator of OscarSoWhite, the hashtag. So listen, April, you are a big deal.
That's what they say.
But started in 2015, correct?
Yes, this was January 2015 that this happened. So I picked up my phone, went to Twitter, which is my social media platform of choice, and said, OscarSoWhite, they asked to touch my hair.
Yes.
Now, any black woman understands fully what that means.
Absolutely.
So then, I finished getting ready for work, went on to work, and checked in around lunchtime, and the hashtag was trending internationally. Now, initially, it was all jokes. It was as sarcastic and as petty as I was making it. So, OscarSoWhite, they wear Birkenstocks in the wintertime. OscarSoWhite, they've got a perfect credit score. OscarSoWhite, they love their mayonnaise sandwiches. You get it, right?
Right.
And so not until a couple of days later did it change into something more substantive about the lack of diversity and inclusion, initially with respect to the nominees that year. But now the conversation has broadened to talk about the entire entertainment industry, not just the Oscars, and we've even gone to other industries. So Journalism So White exists about journalism. Grammy So Male exists about the gender issues with respect to the music industry. And I'm very proud that people are having these conversations 4 years later. It's a hashtag, which they come and go kind of hourly. The fact that we're still talking about this now speaks to the fact that people understand what the issue is. For the most part, we can talk about trolls and things.
Yes, let's get there. Well, it's interesting because the first part about it is so interesting because you never know what's actually going to take off. And you didn't even do it to take off.
Not at all.
Your intention was just to poke fun, but to actually speak about the truth of it, which is so important.
Right.
But I remember that morning, and I remember looking at the slate of nominees, and I think what's interesting about what you said is that it's not the first time, and it's been happening in our world, in entertainment.
For years.
And
it not just it also happened in 2016, right?
Right.
And so then
yes.
people were like, oh, okay, OscarSoWhite 2015, that's a fluke,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
2016, that's 2 years in a row. Now it's a pattern.
Right.
Yes.
And truly, even though it was created in 2015, it really took off in 2016 because people were like, oh, well, maybe she actually has a point here.
Right.
Maybe there is an issue and we need to look at it further. And so then I had to, even in 2015, but especially in 2016, figure out what this movement was, right? Was it a movement? And whether I wanted to take ownership of it, because it's a lot of work. And, again, at that time, I was still working full time, and I was just making a joke and was ready to move on with my life. And it's like, now you're getting calls from Newsweek and, and Time and Good Morning America talking about, hey, who is this lady? And let's talk about this issue.
Well, can we just talk about the power of social media now? Because I feel like it took me a while at first to really understand that you can kind of create your own universe and create your own community and talk about the things that you want to talk about. But it forced you to kind of really put yourself as a business, you know
Absolutely.
what I mean? And really, really be prepared for that next step and for that movement. So like the power of social media, and it's more of a hashtag. Tell us just what that means to you, that it's more than a hashtag.
Man, Twitter has changed my life. Just full stop. As I said, I was a practicing lawyer, and it was not in the entertainment industry. I had no entertainment connections when I created the hashtag whatsoever. And now here I am as the Senior Director of Marketing for Fractured Atlas and the OscarSoWhite lady. And I'm like rubbing shoulders, with Chadwick Boseman or whatever, and Ava knows my name. And it's like, it has completely changed my life. And literally I got my job at Fractured Atlas through Twitter.
Oh, wow.
Right.
So they reached out to you?
Yes.
Okay.
The short end is I created the Women of Color affirmation hashtag. Somebody reached out to me and said, hey, somebody needs to pay you for doing this because your hashtags always go viral. You clearly have a knack. And I was like, yes, somebody does need to pay me for helping out their brand. And the chief external relations officer at Fractured Atlas dropped the job description in my mentions and was like, hey, let's chat.
Wow.
2 months later, I was hired. Yep. So that's why I say it literally has changed my life, and in all good ways. We can deal with the negativity and the trolls and that kind of stuff, but I wouldn't change it for the world.
So what I love about what you're doing the most is that the fact that not only are you speaking about it, you're doing something about it. And you created your own platform to create diversity in the production world, in the film world, which is admirable. And your company is called Aquarelle.
Yes.
Yes, I said it right. So tell us about that.
Sure. So Aquarelle is an online network. So it is for folks in front of and behind the camera, folks in front of and behind the curtain. So we're talking theater now, right? And TV and film. And it is also for those who hold a pen or a microphone or laptop, journalists as well, who can self-identify in all of the categories that I've been talking about with OscarSoWhite. So gender, sexual orientation, race, disability, First Nation status, experience, location, and so on. And they can check off these boxes, right? And then they can put their best foot forward, uploading their profile. And that could be their YouTube channel. Think about Issa Rae and where she started, right? It can be your resume. It can be your headshot, whatever it is. And this is everybody from the best boy in the key grip and craft services to the A-list actor and actress and everybody in between. And then studios, networks, media outlets, theater companies can check off those boxes, search Aquarelle, and find the qualified talent. Very famously, Disney said last year, there are billions of Asian and Asian American people in the world, but we can't find our Jasmine and Aladdin for their live action film. The live action film. Wow. Now, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, right? You got billions of people to choose from. You can't find two. And so this was some of the impetus for Aquarelle. It's like, so I am now bringing it to you, studios, and now you have no excuse. If you say you're committed to the buzzwords today of diversity and inclusion and equity, why aren't you using this network to find qualified talent? And I would love to see them all use it with the Rooney Rule, the way they do in football. So you don't have to necessarily hire somebody, but you at least need to audition or interview somebody from the list. I'm bringing it to you. There's no reason why you wouldn't use it to bring more inclusivity into your cast, your crew, your newsroom, whatever the case may be.
Then you can hold people accountable at that point, because then now you have something, like you said, in front of your face where it's like you can't say that you couldn't find the Jasmine Aladdin. What I think is so cool about it is that I think when we as people of color, in any sense of the word, we create something, they think that we're standing just for our African American, Black, Cuban, whatever it is. And it's like what I heard you mention on CNN was that, like, it's not, the OscarSoWhite was never a Black hashtag.
Nope.
It was the hashtag for gay, for trans, for disabled, for everybody. And so I think it's even more important that you use that mentality and then applied it to something that could benefit. Everybody could benefit.
Well,
that's
and that's the plan. I mean, and to be very honest, as a cis, hetero, able-bodied Black woman, it wasn't always clear to me that it was my place to be speaking on behalf of the disabled community or people with disabilities, or to be speaking for the Latinx or the LGBT plus communities. So what I said was, nobody else is doing it as loudly right now. And so I'm going to make the OscarSoWhite umbrella as big as possible. And then when so-and-so steps up and says, okay, sis, we got it. We're going to run with it from here. Then that's one less thing on my plate. Yes, I'm happy to amplify you. You can speak better to your issues than I can go with it.
But what I heard you say just now is that you empowered yourself, and then in turn you empowered everybody else. And I think that service, that is essentially what that is, and you've pushed the needle forward. You're like, okay, Latinx community, you pick it up now. Trans community, you pick it up now. But you started it, and you empowered yourself in a world where we don't know if we have the power to do that.
Yeah,
if we
but
have
we
the power
all do,
to speak on it.
right?
Right.
And so, and that's the thing that I want to drive home. I am amazing. on several levels.
Yes.
However,
on several levels.
Right, but there was nothing that said that somebody else couldn't have done what I did.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So I didn't have any connections. I think at that time I had like maybe 8,000 Twitter followers. I just saw a problem. And wanted something to be done about it. I have 2 kids, and I wanted them to be able to see themselves in fully realized characters on screen, because I have had enough of the slavery fan fiction.
You and I both.
I'm like, do we need to see another 13, 14 years of slave?
No.
Like,
I mean, we can talk about Confederate, right?
Yeah,
the show from HBO, because we created a hashtag about that too. And I was like, okay, and there were so many folks who said, well, we need to give it a chance because maybe this will teach us about the bad things that happen. It's like, listen, if you have seen Roots and Birth of a Nation and 12 Years a Slave and Django, and I can go on and on and on, and you haven't gotten it yet, why do you think that this particular series is going to do it for you when all those others haven't done it for decades?
I mean, if you're just looking at police brutality alone, I mean, we won't even go there. But what I'm saying is, like, if you look in the world and what's happening, you don't even need another film. We got it.
It was supposed to be alt history, and yet we had reality happening in Charlottesville, where white supremacists killed Heather Heyer. So where is the alt coming in when we are living the history of the Confederacy right now?
Right now.
You know, another thing, too, that, totally off topic, but another thing that was dope when I was researching you, I didn't know you had something to do with the DMX and the George Zimmerman, like, because you remember there was supposed to be boxing.
Stop the fight.
Stop the fight. How, okay. I know you say you got no celebrity contacts or anything like that, but you are powerful. What?
But you in there.
And that was 2014. So that actually predates OscarSoWhite, and that was probably my first foray into what folks call online activism or hashtag activism or whatever. Just to give your listeners a little bit of context, the killer of Trayvon Martin, whose name I don't use because he's a sociopath and searches for it, said that he was going to set up a celebrity boxing match with the rapper DMX. Now, listen, I just thought that was wrong for about 50 different reasons. And so all I did was say, stop the fight. Quick, to the point. You understood exactly what I was trying to say. So I did the online campaign. A sister named Janet Dickerson started a petition, and so she and I were working together on that. And eventually the promoter, who was also on Twitter, the promoter of the fight, called me and initially said, can you...
No contact.
Okay.
I ain't got no I don't know nobody.
No, but he, we were going back and forth on Twitter. He followed me, I followed him. I got into his DMs. I said, listen, this is a bad idea. I slid into his DMs.
Yeah.
I said, this is a bad idea. Here's my phone number if you want to talk it through, because I am shaming you right now. If you want to talk it through privately, let's do that. He gave me a call. We had a very constructive conversation. And, remember, I had been practicing law for nearly 20 years at that point. I used every trick I had, every negotiating tactic, all of that. And a couple of days later, to the tune of a loss of lots and lots of money for him, he, in fact, stopped the fight.
Wow.
So that was first. That was before OscarSoWhite.
That is crazy. It's interesting what I heard you just say about, being a lawyer for 20 years. And it's like, that's a success in its own right, right? And then you having 95,000 retweets an hour is a success in its own right. Talk about, like, right now, how different success is.
Man.
Like, how we can literally create success. I mean, you went to school for being, for practicing law. You were doing it. And then you see Thor in a suit and do a tweet and talk about ain't nobody touching your hair like Salon. And then now you're successful. Now you're with Ava. Ava's like, what's going on, boo? Wrinkle in time.
I cannot quantify it because I exist at this point at 30,000 feet over my life. I don't take the time to really think about who I've met and what I've done because there's more work to be done, right? And so if I sit there in the moment, it's like, damn, Chadwick remembers you. Like, like I went up to him the other day, at the Independent Spirit Awards, and I was like, hi, I want to introduce myself, my name. He's like, oh, yes, I remember when we went. I was like, oh. You were like,
I don't have to introduce myself anymore. Right. Oh, okay. Yes. Hello, it's April.
So I try not to live in the moment because all of those things are wonderful, but and we're still fighting, right? We still have so much to do. So success for me looks like Coco, right? It is a little animated Mexican boy outperforming the Justice League heroes that we've had in pop culture canon for decades. Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman. And this little boy is outperforming them at the box office 3 weekends in a row because people in this country understand the importance of a good story, because representation matters, and because it now means that there are little black and brown girls, especially Latinx kids, who have maybe for the first time seen themselves on screen. That's success to me.
See, and I'm going to go to Wakanda real quick. We jumping into Wakanda.
No, all day.
Because when you mentioned about the representation and being able to see yourself, and then years later, here we are, we finally have something like Black Panther that we all can relate to. And what I love about Black Panther is I think that it forces other people to relate, even if they weren't ready. Right. That's what changes, you know.
Right.
But the numbers, the astronomical numbers that it has reached.
$1.2 billion in worldwide sales.
And what I love about it is that it wasn't one of those films where it was like, it's a black cast, but everybody else is not, not African American. It was black director. You have Ruth Carter. I mean, you have so many different instrumental people who have led that charge. When you saw Black Panther doing the numbers that it was doing, were you surprised at all?
Yes, only because it exceeded even my expectations.
Even your 30,000 feet.
Listen,
it was up there with guys' ankles. Okay,
let me tell you that I have had a Wakanda shirt since like April of 2016. Understand? Like before it was cast, right? And I've got a shirt that says Team Wakanda on it. Before this was before Wakanda Forever. I didn't, obviously we didn't know the phrase at the time. And my expectations were so high, and I knew everybody's would be. And that was actually a concern, right? Because it's like so much had been put on the shoulders of this, 31-year-old man, Ryan Coogler, who is a genius savant. I don't think, because the word that I want to use with respect to Black Panther is intentional, right? And because of the very things that you've mentioned, it's one thing to have a black cast, right? Yeah. And to be thoughtful and intentional about who it is. So you've got a nice mix of A-list actors that everybody knows, but you also have Winston Duke and Letitia Wright, who ate up the screen every time they were there. I could talk forever about Denai, because she is a triple threat on big screen, on stage, and on small screen, right? And she was doing stuff at the same time. It's like, okay, I have to wear a wig for The Walking Dead because I'm bald and Black Panther, I'm writing this play.
Right.
Okay.
What's up?
Superwoman.
It's just Tuesday, right? Yeah. I mean, that is just a nice regular day. So we're talking about the cast, which is important, but just as you mentioned, even more important to me was the crew. So the production designer was black, the costume designer, the director, both of the screenwriters, the executive producer, Nate Moore from Marvel, and let's give him a shout out, right? Because in my mind, had it not been for a black executive producer from Marvel, perhaps we would not have had Ryan Coogler, and we would not have had the story the way that we did. Right? Because again, I think that Nate gave Ryan the freedom to make the story that he wanted to make. And then at the end, and I'm going to spoil it, because if you haven't seen Black Panther by now...
Don't even talk to us.
Right.
Don't come up to us. Don't say hi. Don't wave at us. Don't follow us on Instagram. We're done with you. We are done.
Yes, we are done. But that line at the end by Killmonger that says, can you imagine that a little black boy from Oakland, realizing his dreams? That wasn't about Eric Killmonger. That was about Ryan Coogler.
Yes.
That was Ryan talking about where he was. There's an intentionality about it being set in Oakland.
Yes.
So again, we could do the whole show on Black Panther.
No.
But
do you think that from now, like, people will realize, okay, we need to hire more black people to run, shows or movies that are predominantly black cast now, instead of having a white executive running, black cast movies or film or whatever.
I pray that's true. And not just black, but people from marginalized communities, right? So, the Latinx folks still need their story told.
Right.
Yes.
The LGBT plus folks still need their story told. And I talk about this all the time. For the very first time in 2018, we had Tanzina Vega, right, who was the first openly trans actress to present at the Academy, and her film, in which she starred, A Fantastic Woman, won Best Foreign Film for Chile. That is big. It's a trans woman playing a trans woman. Now, to the three of us, that might sound real obvious, but just a few years ago, we had Eddie Redmayne playing a trans woman in The Danish Girl, and it's like, well, why is that?
Right.
When we know that being trans was an intricate part of that character, and so a trans person would have brought something, more in that role. And that's something that I get with OscarSoWhite. Oh, okay, so, black people can play everybody, but white folks can't play this, and you have to make sure, oh, well, then what are you saying with Orange is the New Black? Does that mean that all the folks have to be prisoners? No, but it would be great if you had some formerly incarcerated folks on the set as consultants to ask them what it feels like to be locked up in the same cell for 18 hours a day, right?
To really be able to bring that light and the truth to
context.
The context
all
of the
about
whole
context.
scene. Yeah.
Right.
You know who's stirring up the LGBT community, though? Is Lena Waithe.
Man.
She is doing it.
Phenom.
Yeah.
She's doing it.
Phenom. And the fact that she is in Ready Player One is huge.
Yes.
But, she also does Master of None, and she's got The Shy, and so she's got her hands in all of these different things, but bringing her authentic self to all of it. Lena says, I am an open, lesbian, black woman, and you are going to get all of me all the time, and that's the way everybody should have the freedom to do.
I agree.
Speaking of powerful women and sitting next to two powerful women, and we're in the movements of other hashtags, whether it be a Me Too or any other hashtag. What do you think, as men, we could do to empower the women that we love, or that we're dealing with, or that we work with, or we talk to?
Support us.
Yep. Listen and amplify. Right. And listen. Period. Amplify, period. Like, those are whole sentences, you know what I mean? Because I think that all of us have a certain kind of privilege, as again, able-bodied, black, cis, hetero woman. I have privilege over a black lesbian woman, right?
Yes.
It's just easier for me to navigate through the world.
Yes.
It's easier as an able-bodied woman to navigate through the world. And so I need to shut up and listen and learn and read more about those marginalized communities of which I'm not a part. Men have to do the same thing. And there needs to be intersectionality, right? You can't talk about black women without talking about black trans women, because they are also women, right?
Yes.
So you have to make sure that you are being thoughtful. You need to talk about black queer women. You need to talk about black disabled women. You need to talk about Afro-Latino women, right? Because sometimes they're considered black and sometimes they're considered Latinx, but they're still part of our community.
Absolutely.
So listening, reading, and then amplifying, using your platform to lift somebody else up. And that's what, I've been trying to do with OscarSoWhite and Aquarelle is,
Not trying. You gotta remove just go ahead and say that again. But you're doing, though.
Right.
Trying would be you back in that house watching Thor on TV, you know what I'm saying, getting ready for work. Like, you have a business, and this is me amplifying.
Yes.
It's me amplifying.
Yes.
We have to stop with the word trying if don't have intention to do it. Intention is everything. But you're doing it. You're here. We're talking about it. Now, whether it has 1 million views, if I'm transcribing it to an analogy that we can all understand, or every industry or every label or studio has signed up to use it or not, the intention is there behind it, and it exists. So for that alone, we are no longer trying. We're doing. So we here for Aquarelle forever.
Hey.
You know what I mean?
Hey, I like that. You give me the Wakanda salute. You got my best friend. I'm here for all of that.
I love it. So, what advice or feedback do you have for anyone who wants to create a movement or move the culture forward as what you're doing?
Yeah, it's a lot, because as we were talking before the show, hashtags don't make money, right? You cannot pay your rent or your mortgage with a hashtag. So you really have to, I think you have to be, if you're going to do it intentionally, right? So, like, for example, No Confederate, about the Confederate show on HBO that we talked about, and Stop the Fight, for example, those were intentional. OscarSoWhite was organic. It just kind of happened. If you've decided that that's what you want to do, you have to understand that you are now the face and the brand of that movement, right? And everything that means, which can from time to time mean a lot of negativity, which means that it may take you away from your family. I have children who are 14 and 18, and I know that I could not do this if my kids were 10 years younger. I couldn't be away from them as long, you know what I mean? I've got one in college now, and he's good. He doesn't need me there every day, and I've got a daughter who is ready to take over the world and really doesn't need anybody. So, and FaceTime is a thing. Right, and FaceTime is a thing, and so I can see her literally when I need to. But if my kids were like 4 and 8, there's no way that I could be away from them as much as I am. So for folks who are starting out, make sure that you have a plan, right? You can, part of me wants to say, don't do what I did, right? Because
let's speak the truth, though. If you can help anyone,
right? OscarSoWhite is still happening organically, and it's working now. But let's remember that I'm also a 47-year-old woman who knows how to handle her business, and so when things come at me, I know how to handle them better than maybe if I was 25 or whatever, just because I've had more life experience, right? Exactly, preparation and experience, and it's also about, OscarSoWhite is now in the zeitgeist, right? It's sort of part of the culture now. So you have to take whatever your movement is offline. It would not have existed if it was just on Twitter, because not everybody is on Twitter, right? So you've got to have articles, and if you can write, that's helpful, because then it's in first person and you are speaking your words. You've got to do interviews, you got to do podcasts, and you've got to ensure, and you need a team of people. Now, I have been party of one for OscarSoWhite since the beginning, but I have people in my corner who assist me, not with the front-facing part of it, but just, maybe you shouldn't do this interview, or, let's see if we can get you here, those kind of things. And that's incredibly helpful, too, because part of it is finding your tribe or your community. And so now when somebody negative steps to me on OscarSoWhite, oh, well, BET so black, or you're racist, or, I've had some racial and ethnic minorities step to me and say, why aren't you fighting for us? Now I don't even have to say anything, right? I've got a community on Twitter that's like, okay, let me point you to all of the articles where April said it is inclusive of everybody. What could you possibly be talking about BET so black when Eminem got a Vanguard Award and Sam Smith won Best New Artist, right? And so there are people now who are part of my tribe on social media who can speak for me just as eloquently as I can. So it's rough.
I was waiting for you to finish. I was like, yo, you building your tribe. And then when you said tribe, I'm like, yes.
What kind of?
Unfortunately, though, we're out of time. Know, yes, and the next show is pulling up. But I want to say thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Shawn, you killed it. Y'all let us know if y'all want Shawn to come back. Let me know what y'all think.
I want Shawn to come back.
And thank you so much, April. Hopefully you'll be in the Oscars next year.
Yes.
That's crazy. It'll be the first time. That's crazy.
All right, guys. Well, make sure you guys follow us on It's the Session at its_the_session. Check out the hashtag OscarSoWhite. If you haven't already, follow the movement. April, how can they follow you or find you and your website?
Yes, I am Reign of April everywhere. REIGNOFAPRIL. Twitter primarily, but it's reignofApril.com, Reign of April on Instagram, LinkedIn, all those places you don't go.
All right, guys. Till next time. Bye. Yeah.